Welcome to Guest of the Year. I'm the host. My name is Mike. Joining us as this week's guest setlist curator is Lara Marie Schoenhals. In addition to being a lifelong Deadhead, Lara is a New York Times bestselling author and prolific podcaster. She hosts two podcasts currently, Sup, Sexy Unique Podcast, and Too Niche, both of which put a critical and comedic lens on pop culture. Welcome, Lara.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thanks for being here. This week's prize pack is provided by Jon Griffin Art. Jon Griffin Art is a studio run by, you guessed it, Jon Griffin, who does colorful, exotic, psychedelic acrylic on canvas paintings. He's putting up a really awesome one of Jerry as this week's prize pack. It's a really tremendous prize, so big shout out to Jeff for making this happen, actually. And of course, thanks to John and to Mason for curating the prize packs. You can find a link to John's page in the show notes. All right, here's how the game works. We'll play the first part of a Grateful Dead live track, and each contestant will use the messaging system to silently guess which year the performance is from. Contestants who are all on video conference together can message in their guesses at any time during the clip or in the 10 seconds after it concludes. Whoever is furthest from the correct year is eliminated. The last two Deadheads standing will have a best of three series to determine a winner. We've got our returning champion Jocelyn here with us, and we'll meet the rest of the Deadheads in a moment, but first, let's hear the first song. Without further ado, The Grateful Dead. All right, the guesses are in. It was Cumberland Blues at Fillmore East on April 28th, 1971. Lara, nice pick. Why that one?
Thank you. I have to admit, when you asked me to do this podcast, I was like a little bit intimidated because I am a Deadhead, but my road to Deadhead dumb was probably like, I think I used the excuse to go to like Rat Dog concerts in Oklahoma City where I grew up because there would be a chance to hear like a good Dead song. I didn't really know the members, but it was a place where you could like openly smoke weed and like do mushrooms. So that really appealed to me as a high schooler. And it was always kind of party music until probably my like early 30s when I went to Fare Thee Well and I was like radicalized. And when you're asking me to like choose a bunch of years, I'm like, I don't really even know like the differences in certain years or decades versus other decades. But what I do have is a Sirius XM subscription, and I do listen to the Dead channel in my car. So I was listening and I tried to choose like in all my choices are like songs that I would love to personally hear live, like a dream set list, if you will. And when I heard this song, for some reason, like it just was like, I mean, Cumberland Blues is a fun party song, but this specific version was like, you can imagine yourself at the show, you feel the energy, and it was just infectious and really fun. So I took it pic of it on my phone, and then I threw it on this set list. So, yeah.
Well, you put together a great set list. It's
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited to run through this one.
I tried to choose songs that that I want to hear, but then I was like, I really have to challenge these contestants and see if I can throw wrenches into like the vibe. So I was trying to so that was where my head was at when I was choosing years.
Yeah, you have to, because these people that come on the show are great. And
I know.
Everyone was right around it. Jonathan was the only one who got it exactly, though. Jonathan is 24 and he's from Tallahassee. Why 71, Jonathan? How'd you pull that one?
It just has that really raw power, that really raw sound that 71 has. One thing I noticed was the audience. They knew exactly what song they were playing. You can really hear the cheers. So that was a clue to me that this is after the album had come out. So kind of pushing it towards 71.
Whoa, the audience knowing the song. Nice, Jonathan. Next closest was Nick. He guessed 1970. Nick is 53 and he's from Walla Walla, Washington. I've been waiting to say that for weeks since you signed up, Nick. Nick, you guessed 1970. Why 70?
Well, it was the tension between gut and game. It was like I could have even gone, I think that they first played Cumberland like late 69, December 69, maybe. But it was like, for me, it was that era is 69, 70, 71, the primal elements of that. Good call on the audience response to the tune. That's a good cue to pick up on. But it's interesting, that was the April Fillmore East shows. Is that what you said?
Yes, it was April 28th at Fillmore East.
Yeah, I think I got all those shows. It's like a buddy of mine growing up had all these reel-to-reels and I got all these tapes from those reels of that run from the Fillmore East. So I listened to that a lot, and so I'm kind of disappointed in myself for not nailing it.
But like you said, you were playing the game.
Yeah.
Well, nice work. Going the other direction was Mateo at 1972. Mateo is 35, and he is currently residing in Madrid, and it's currently 2:20 a.m. there. So thank you for staying up, Mateo.
No problem. My pleasure.
Why 72?
For me, clearly it was 71 or 72. Very clean sound, very raw, like Nick and Jonathan said. A lot of power. So that should have told me 71, but I loved how clean it sounded, so I just stuck with 72.
Nice summary. Welcome, Mateo. Okay, so Jocelyn guessed 73 and David guessed 69. So everyone's on to the next round. But let's meet David. David is 62 and he's from Buffalo. David, you thought it was 69. Why 69?
To tell you the truth, I got so lost in hearing the song and enjoying it, I almost forgot to enter because I was determined to wait till the end. And then the song stopped and it was like, oh, so the Y69 was, I knew the approximate range that the song was, and I'm just glad I got to guess it.
Totally reasonable, David. Nice playing the game. You're on the next round. Jocelyn is our returning champ. She's from Cassville, Missouri. There it is. You guessed 73, Jocelyn. Why 73?
Yeah, I heard the one drummer. It sounded early. I heard Phil pretty strongly in there, and I think of that more like 73, 74, but I don't listen to a lot of the early stuff, so maybe he's that forward in 72. In 71 as well.
You're more into the 80s, right, Jocelyn?
That's correct.
Well, everyone's on to the next round. Lara has another pick for us here. Let's hear it.
didn't get to sleep that night till the morning came around. Said I'm running, but I take my time. Friend of the devil is a friend of mine. I get home before daylight, just might get some sleep tonight. Ran into the devil, baby, loaned me 20 bills. Spent the night in Utah in a cave up in the hills. Get out running, but I take my time. Friend of the devil is a friend of mine. I get home before daylight, just might get some sleep.
It was Friend of the Devil, the first one in like 5 months on the show. Thank you, Lara. At Providence Civic Center on May 13th, 1981. Nice choice, Lara. Why that one?
Well, as a teen, my I guess introduction to Grateful Dead was from like this cool girl who I really like idolized in high school, and I hung out with her after school, and like her and a couple of friends, we all smoked weed together. She played American Beauty, and I just remember like that album was kind of like my first favorite songs that I had heard of the Dead. And I just always loved to hear Friend of the Devil in particular live. And I liked this arrangement because it felt more down tempo and almost like a lullaby. And I think it's like that keyboard kind of has this like interesting magical sound to it. And that was another Sirius XM pick. So that helped me out too. But not all of them are. They're front loaded. So don't think that I'm just playing Sirius and taking screenshots. I only did that on 3.
There's a lot of Sirius influence on this show. The entire show is based on Sirius, so it fits right in. So when you're going over to your friend's house, this cool girl, to smoke weed and listen to American Beauty, did you know you were going over there to do that, or did she just like stand up, put on American Beauty, and?
I knew we'd probably party. We'd probably go buy some beers with fake IDs and things would ensue. But that was kind of like my freshman year of high school was how I learned about classic rock, because like all the people that I looked up to and wanted to like party with in high school loved classic rock. So they really were like my educators in that sense.
What were you listening to when you decided I'm going to pivot to classic rock to be with the cool kids?
Probably like radio, like top 40 radio stations. Like I listened to a lot of musicals growing up. Like I was really into musical soundtracks or like movie soundtracks even. And then I was running junior varsity cross country and someone put on Led Zeppelin Houses of the Holy, and that like changed my life. That album, I was like, I can't believe there's music like this that like people listen to, that this is real. Like this is one of the best things I've ever heard. And then it was all downhill from there.
Understandable transition there. Well, it was a nice pick. The only one to get it exactly was David. Nice poll, David. Tough in those early 80s.
That was a guess because I happened to be lucky enough to attend UMass from 77 to 81. I'm sure I was at that show, but I felt pretty comfortable that it was late 70s to early 80s. So I just decided to go with my graduation year. The tempo never spoke to me in the moment. I like listening to the slower tempo now, but having had the experience of the up-tempo version live, it was a little disappointing to me when they took it down, but I like it now.
Yeah, right on. So 2 people guessed 1980, Jocelyn and Nick. Jocelyn, we'll go back to our champ here. Why 1980?
I knew it was early Brent. I was like 79, 80, 81. And so I just went right in the middle with 80.
Nice, Jocelyn. Nick also guessed 1980. What'd you hear there, Nick?
I heard early 80s. I was playing the game like Jocelyn, I was like, this is probably 80, 81, maybe 82, but I felt Jared's voice was more toward 1980, and it had a lot of that dead set sound going there. So there you go, 1980.
Why couldn't it have been like 84, say?
Well, I think there's some fundamental shifts between 83 and 84 that you can really hear in Garcia's voice. The music played on, but Garcia's chin was in his chest most of the time, and you kind of heard that in his voice.
Yeah, if I could interject, I would say the tempo. Also, Laura was talking about it sounding like a lullaby, and I don't think you'd hear it that way in 1984.
Bit more coked out.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Lots of notes.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of notes. Yeah. I like that you said that about the lullaby. I meant to mention that earlier about the lullaby, because that's one of the things that drew me to that song. Also, is that dichotomy. It's the friend of the devil, but it sounds like a lullaby, and I like that kind of play off of each other like that. That's cool.
Yeah, it's like sinister but sweet at the same time.
Exactly. I love that.
David, I was like laughing at what you were saying about like if you're at the show, you don't want to hear it down tempo, and I totally see that. But like in a retrospect, not at the show and just like driving or something, it's a delight. But yeah,
it is.
I think that's why this, I have Sirius, and sure, I don't skip the song when it comes on. No.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well,
you got me nervous, Mike.
I know. I'm sorry, Mateo.
Yeah, the suspense is killing me.
I like had it and then I just lost it. Oh wow. Okay, everyone's on to the next round again. So Mateo guessed 79 and Jonathan guessed 83.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you, Mateo. Hoping you do that. My fingers crossed you're guessing 79.
Mateo, yeah, you guessed 79. Hit us.
So since I discovered the show, I love the show, Mike. Love it.
Thank
Since
you.
I discovered it, I've been listening to it nonstop. I take my dog to a walk at the park and I'm listening to it. And I'm like, the best way to learn this stuff is by listening to your show, because I practiced by just pressing random on like the dead archives that I have on my phone, the app. And it didn't really work out as well as listening to the show, because I can hear what others are saying about it, their opinions. And something I heard on the show was that in the late 70s, like 79, early 80s, Brent was usually loud in the mix because they wanted to see if he gelled with the band. They wanted to go back and listen to it and see if he was a good fit. And I said, oh my God, Brent is really loud. He's not playing like wild. He's not singing really loudly. This has got to be right when he joined on. So 79, I went with 79.
Those lullaby keys, they got you. And that
They
was
got me.
Joshua who made that pull late in the finals against Todd, an all-timer. But you were, again, right there, 2 years off. Jonathan guessed 83.
Yeah, not gonna lie, early 80s is a bit of an Achilles heel for me. It's not really my go-to dead. I love Brent. I love 89, 90, that stuff. Oh my God, I can't get enough of that. But no, like right off the bat, I was like, man, it sounds like 1980. Like at first I thought it was like 77 just because of Bobby's tone. Maybe that should have made me push it back a year or two. But Jerry, he just sounded a little bit aged when he was singing. So I was like, I don't know, it might be 82, 83. So yeah, that's what I went with, and I just got lucky.
I mean, you weren't far off. Nice work, everyone. Everyone's on to the next round. Never happened before. Third round, no one eliminated. This is great. Let's hear the next song.
down, down by the docks of the city. Blind and dirty. Ask me for a dime for a cup of coffee. No time, but I got some time to hear his story.
The song was Wharf Rat at Silva Hall on May 8th, 1984. Lara, sultry Jerry ballad there, nice one. Why that Wharf Rat?
Well, it's as simple as this. I love the song Wharf Rat. It's so sad and depressing, but tells like this cool story, and then it leads up to this amazing like peak moment, but then gets sad again. And then May 1984 is my birth month, so I was hoping to find a show on May 30th, 1984, which is my birthday, but I couldn't, so I settled for May 8th, 1984. And then when I heard this, I was like, this wouldn't be my first Wharf Rat choice. It does sound, it's starting to get a little circusy in there with the, but I was doing it to really, again, throw a year wrench at people. But then now after I've heard everyone talking about early 80s into the 84 transition, I feel like maybe this was a bit easy, but we'll see.
You know, the mid 80s are never easy, but that does make them fun. So Nick and Jonathan were equal distance apart in 1983 and 1985. Nick, we'll start with you. You guessed 1985. You're on to the next round. There are no ties this round. What'd you hear there?
Well, I like Lara's description there of circusy, because I felt Phil was trying to pick it up a little bit, you know, and I was recalling when I was listening to that, maybe it was in his book or Billy's book, talking about how sometimes they would fuck with Jerry and like mess with the tempo on him. I don't know if you all read that piece, but anyway, I was almost pulled to 84, but settled on 85 because of the clarity of the recording, and there are really a lot of good 85s out there. I had a lot of 85s in my tape collection, and so I was like, you know, it could be either one. I'm going to go with 85 because I just had a lot of 85s in my wall.
That clue is really useful a lot of the time, just how many tapes are floating around. And that must have been Billy's book, because I just read Phil's book and there was no messing with Jerry. I think Phil like fears Jerry too much for that.
And I think Billy's more of a prankster.
Yeah. Well, nice work, Nick. You're on the next round. And then, joining you will be Jonathan, who guessed 1983. Right on it, Jonathan. Why 83?
I just want to keep that train going with 83. It's definitely later than the last song. Actually, Nick kind of helped me out because he said Brent was a little bit softer in the mix later into the 80s. So I picked up on that. And, Jerry, he certainly sounded a little bit older, a little bit heavier, a little bit more raspy. A lot more cigarettes have been consumed in this recording. So, I was floating back and forth like 83, 84, 83, 84. And I just settled on 83. And, that's how I got it.
Nice work. Listening even within the game. Damn, Jonathan. Nice. Cool. You're on the next round. Jocelyn's also on the next round. 1986, Jocelyn. That's when you started seeing the Dead, right?
84 was my first show, and I was actually bouncing back and forth between 84 and 86. And I should have said 85, but anyhow, I was bouncing back and forth between 84 and 86. And I decided Jerry sounds tired, and so I said 86.
Well, nice work. So the last one on to the next round is Mateo, who guessed 1982. David got tripped up with 1975. So he's eliminated. Mateo's on to the next round. Mateo, we're going to keep you up a little longer.
Right.
Why'd you guess 82?
So like you said earlier, 80s are a little bit tough for most people, for me as well. Not for Jocelyn. Jocelyn's got it. It looks like you other guys got it too. But for me, it's tough. I usually can tell between the early 80s and the late 80s, but knowing the exact years is complicated for me. I could hear Jerry's more gravelly voice, so I knew it wasn't going to be like the 7980 with Brent on the keys, which I could also discern. Brent was still, it seemed to me, like playing softly, not really overabundant, but it's also a soft, slow song. So I couldn't really nail the year based on that. So I just almost closed my eyes and popped a number at the end of the 8 there towards the beginning of the half of the decade.
Well, your method has worked. You're on to the next round.
Yes.
David, 75. What tripped you up there?
It was never my favorite song. So, right, I guess I was out of the venues more than in them when that happened. But no, I don't have any reason other than it's been a fun experience having the opportunity to do this.
Oh yeah, well, you're not out here quite yet. How'd you get into the Dead?
I would have had different answers through the course of the more than 50 years that I've been into the Dead, but I heard Casey Jones and Trucking when I was 10 years old for the first time in my life repeatedly. And then I ended up going to UMass, already being familiar with some of those songs, like I said, so toured pretty heavily with the radius of the Dead's touring schedule in New England from 77 to 81 and never stopped, every iteration, every year. That movie that won the Academy Award, not this year, but last year, Coda.
Coda, yeah.
I recommend it, but it's also interesting because I am a child of deaf adults, although I never even knew what that acronym meant until I saw the movie. But yet, I think the emphasis that they placed on me living a normal, quote unquote, hearing life involved me listening to a lot of radio and watching a lot of television. And and that happily led me to the Dead.
So your parents wanted to make sure that you engaged with audio culture.
They, there's a whole thing about deaf culture and sign language, and I can sign, and we've all been to every rock show pretty much has an interpreter for hearing impaired of a certain size or in certain venues. But they didn't, it was a different type of thinking going on. Again, I heartily endorse the movie Coda for a better understanding of deaf culture, and there's some great rock music in it too. It's a nice mixture of several themes that happen to have tied into my life too.
Thank you so much, David. Thank you for sharing that, and thanks for being here.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me, and good luck to all of you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, David.
Thanks, David.
Take it easy. We'll see you on the road.
Yeah.
Bye.
See you at the next show.
Cheers.
All right. Well, Mateo, Jocelyn, Nick, and Jonathan are on to the next round, and Lara has a nice song for them. Let's hear it.
Fare you well, my honey. Fare you well, my only true one. All the birds that will sing are flown except you, love. My hands and my knees, I will roll, make myself a bed by the waterside. In my time, we'll roll, in a bed by the waterside. Sweet song, you're up my
right, the guesses are in. It was Broke Down Palace at Shoreline Amphitheater on September 18th, 1994. Really nice one, Laura. Why that broke down?
I love the song Broke Down Palace. And I have a friend who we joke with each other, kind of gallows humor. If one of us was to go first, the other one would have to get up and sing like a cappella song at their funeral. And so I'd always tell her that I would sing this song, which would be really unfortunate for everyone there, but really funny for me and from her watching in the afterlife. So I love Broke Down, and I wanted to find a song from the 90s because I felt like I hadn't had one of those yet on my list. And so when I was looking through shows from the 90s, I saw the Shoreline show, and then I've seen Dead and Company at Shoreline, and it was a really fun time. So that's why I chose this venue in this show.
Nice. What is she singing at your funeral?
She's singing you know that song from the Fast and the Furious that's like Till I See You Again?
Oh yeah. When Paul Walker dies, did they play
Yeah,
that?
that was what with the rap and everything. I think there's like a rap in the middle of it. Yeah.
I did sing that song at my grandma's funeral. I sang and played that song. Yeah, it's a great funeral song. I don't want anybody to die. Just play that song, but it's a perfect funeral song.
Wait
so just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, of course. Was she a Deadhead, or was it just like you thought it'd be nice?
Not at all. Not at all. I feel like I'm the only one in my family and like extended family that likes the Grateful Dead. But I said, you know what? This song is perfect. Nobody's even going to know it's the Grateful Dead. I'm going to sing it. And I brought people to, people were crying. They're like, oh my God, what a beautiful song. It's like, yeah, I know. It's the Grateful Dead.
It's an original. That's awesome, Mateo. That's so cool. And what instruments did you play it on?
The guitar.
Okay, cool.
I mean, didn't Hunter write that at the same time as To Lay Me Down and Ripple? He must have been having such an introspective day. And I heard somewhere too that it was right around the time Jerry's mom died, and it's just those are some sad and philosophical songs.
I think he got like blacked out and woke up, and just all three of the songs were written.
They were just there.
Yeah.
Wasn't he like drinking absinthe in London or something like that?
That's right.
No way.
Sounds right. Yeah.
Wow, what a miracle!
I know.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Productive afternoon.
I wish that happened when I was blacked out.
If only.
Okay. Well, two people nailed it exactly, which I was surprised and impressed by. Nick and Jonathan nailed it exactly. Jonathan, go to you. Why 94?
Yeah. Obviously Vince was there, so it was post 1990. Bruce was not there. So it had been in like 93, maybe 92 on. I just want to say like 93 was a really good year for Vince. He wasn't chained up to the synthesizer. He was all out there on his own. He really came into his own. But as the song progressed, you can tell Jerry he's in some rough shape. You tell the band was really towing the line there, where Jerry used to play in those fills. I just want to say like it's kind of poetic in a way, him singing this song like towards those later years in his life. It's almost as if like he was like looking in a mirror, is like singing about himself. I feel like there's something to really be said about that. But I knew 94 is smack dab in the middle between 93 and 95, so I went with that.
Way to go, Jonathan. Nick also guessed 94. Nice pull. How'd you figure that one out?
Well, Jerry's rig changed in 93, in the summer of 93, where he went, the whole band's rig changed. So Jerry went direct input into the PA. And so you can really hear a change in his tone. And so I was listening for that, because it's that sort of mid-late 90s shift. And frankly, like, I don't listen to a lot of that era. But as the time went on from that change in the rig, they started to dial it in better. And I could tell that it was dialed in a little bit better. And so I just went with 94.
Do you play guitar?
I do.
When you're picking out the rig like that, it shows. That's awesome, Nick. That's a really good observation, and I'm sure a clue that people are going to use moving forward.
Yeah, so you can go back and I think it's the Eugene shows in the summer of '93 where the new rig goes into play, and that's where there's that sort of epic jackstraw opener that lasted for like 20 minutes, and that's because Bob's rig totally failed. And so Jerry had to carry Jack Straw for, about 20 minutes while they were getting Bob's back online, essentially.
Jack Straw too. That's pretty wild. That must have been ripping.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was there. So yeah, it was pretty cool.
That's awesome. Do you know what was going on?
Yeah, we were watching and you could see Bob was super frustrated. He actually broke his guitar in half. They had to get him a whole new guitar. The neck just separated from the body. He just totally smashed it. Super frustrated. I can't imagine like being that frustrated and then coming back out and playing a fantastic show. Because those shows were great if you ever listened to them.
Cool. Mateo is also on in the next round because he guessed 1991, which means Jocelyn, our returning champ who guessed 1989, is eliminated. Very sorry to see you go, Jocelyn. We'll talk to you in a sec. But Mateo from Madrid, you are on to the next round with your 91 guess. So you thought you heard Bruce in there as well?
No, I thought it was Vince. I thought I could hear Vince singing. So I couldn't tell with the keyboards if it was Vince or Bruce, but I thought I could hear his vocal harmonies. I heard Bob's tone, which was very 90s. Sounds very 90s to me, that really overdrive. Sounds like he's using like a guitar pick made out of glass. Almost he's scraping along the strings. So that's what I heard.
Nice work. You're on the next round. Jocelyn, you guessed 1989 there. What'd you hear?
I don't know why I kept thinking Vince sounded like Brent, and I was like, is that Brent? Wait a minute, who is that? I don't know. It just kind of threw me. And then for a minute I thought it was Bruce singing. I'm like, but I don't hear two pianos, and I don't know. I just decided it was really late Brent.
Got it.
I was wrong.
We had a hell of a run, and we can see your art on the wall, but the people at home can't see it. But where can they see your art, like online?
I have a website, byjocelyn.com. And I also have an Etsy store, which is also called By Jocelyn. And Jocelyn is Jocelyn.
Well, Jocelyn, thanks for doing Guest of the Year these past couple of weeks. It's been a joy to listen to you.
I loved it. It's super fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course.
Nice to meet you, Jocelyn.
Yeah,
Hi,
you too.
Yeah, nice to meet you. Sorry to have dethroned the queen.
I don't know about all that. I really think it was beginner's luck. So yeah.
9 songs. It's hard to be beginner's luck for 9 songs. So yeah, thanks, Jocelyn.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Mateo, Nick, and Jonathan are fighting for 2 spots in the best of 3 series for the Jon Griffin, Jerry Garcia painting. Lara's got another song. Let's hear it.
Well, me and my uncle went riding down South Colorado, West Texas bound. We stopped up at Santa Fe. Well, that been the one just about halfway. Then you know it was the hottest part of the day. Well, I took the horses up to the stall, went to the bar room, ordered drinks for all. 3 days in the saddle, no, my body hurt. It's been summer, oh, I took off the shirt. I tried to wash off some of that dust and dirt. West Texas cowboys, well, there's all around. With liquor and money, well, they loaded down. So soon after payday, though it seemed a shame, you know my uncle, he starts to run the game. They don't ride low jack in the winter, take the hand. started winning. Cowboys got sore.
Great, the guesses are in. Me and My Uncle at Winterland on November 9th, 1973. Really fun pick there, Lara. Why that one?
Thank you. I love the song Me and My Uncle. It's like such a fun jam and it's so like upbeat. I like a storytelling element of it. But then that, I have to say, was another Sirius XM find. And that's when I started to realize, like, I think my favorite era that I'm gravitating towards the most, just as a listener, and this is maybe laying the groundwork for my future contestant space on guest of the year, let's say. I think I'm gravitating towards like early 70s. So it's good to know that about myself. And yeah, I just thought the energy, and I think it's everything so youthful, and even the audience, you can hear the audience whooping it up, and it just is like you imagine yourself there at the show. So
you like hearing the audience?
I like hearing the audience, and like I like this kind of young energy, and you imagine the band being young and kind of at maybe the beginning ish of their careers as musician, and like how you hear how exciting that is for them. And I love that.
Kind of the opposite of Jerry singing Broke Down, foreshadowing his own death.
A little bit, yeah.
Well, everyone's on the next round because Mateo and Nick guessed 74 and Jonathan guessed 72. Everyone was 1 year off. So, Mateo, we'll start with you. Why 74?
So I was listening first for the Rhythm Devils to see if I could hear both Billy and Mickey. And I felt like I could only hear Billy. So I was like, okay, I got a pocket to work with. And then I was listening for the microphones. And I could hear him when he said, my shirt and damn shame. It sounded like that compressor microphone sound that's been talked about on the show quite a few times. So then I was like, okay, either 73 or 74. But I wasn't 100% sure that it was only Billy. So I put it to 74 to get closer to the 70, 75, 76 era in case I was wrong.
Well put, Mateo. Nice. Nick, you're also on 74. Anything you want to add to Mateo's breakdown?
Definitely wall of sound era. And, this could be just my own internal bias and totally just making shit up. But I always sort of associate 74 as more up tempo than 73. So I went with 74 because it was such a smoking version. And it was almost 74, right? I mean, it was like late fall 73.
Correct. Yeah, November 9th.
Yeah, so okay.
Jonathan guessed 72. You're also on the next round, Jonathan. Why 72?
Kind of like what Nick was saying, it was really bumping. So I kind of thought it was like 71 at first, but then I heard Keith come in, so I knew it had to be a 72. I'm a little embarrassed. I really thought I knew the wall of sound well. I'm used to the wall of sound recordings being a lot more clear. This was kind of a muddy mix, so that's kind of what I was leaning towards, like early 72. So yeah, I knew Keith started with 72, so I just went with that.
Thanks, Jonathan. You and everyone are on to the next round. Lara, before we go on, I was hoping to get your origin story. How did you get into the Dead, and how did you start these two great podcasts?
So I got into the Dead, kind of like I said, like hanging out with like the pot smoker crowd in high school and getting turned on to like American Beauty. And then starting to hear, like, what was interesting is I didn't understand when I was younger the allure of listening to a live recording. To me, I didn't like that sound, and it didn't like hit for me. So I was really more listening to like the studio albums. And the Dead wasn't together anymore when I was a teen, but Bill and Bob would tour sometimes together, and they would hit the Oklahoma City Zoo amphitheater. And it was always fun to go with my friends. And, it's a kooky crowd. You can kind of party and do whatever. And so it was more associated with just like music that I liked. I didn't know all the songs, but every once in a while I'd hear a song that I liked, and it was like a chance to go out and party and socialize. And then as I got older and went to more shows, that obviously, like, yeah, I would party at them sometimes, but then you start to really understand like the difference between each show and how, and like use what songs you're gravitating more to, or like, oh, I haven't heard that one in a while. And it becomes like every show is its own memory. And then I went to Fare Thee Well, and that was like unbelievable. And then my friends and I in California just started doing like runs of shows. I think for like my 34th birthday or 33rd birthday, we did like 5 shows in a row, like starting in Arizona, doing 2 in LA, and then going up to Shoreline and doing 2. And it's just like such a fun event to go with friends and like make a memory together. But then also it's just like there's always amazing people watching, and then like the music is good and the show is a long experience, and it's just like the most fun thing to do. And then, oh, you're wondering how I got into podcasting?
Yeah.
I was writing for a long time after college. I moved to LA like in 2008, and then I left a writing partnership I was with and kind of was starting from scratch a bit, and was burnt out on writing and found that talking was much easier than having to write. And I loved this. I'm also like a big fan of reality television, and was watching this one show, Vanderpump Rules, that's on Bravo. And I found that I could talk at length about the show for hours. And I kind of was like, wouldn't it be cool if I turned this obsessive like hobby into an actual like podcast, or made something out of this obsession? So I kind of got my start doing that, and then it's evolved. That's like Sex Unique podcast has evolved to talking about that show, doing pop culture commentary, and discussing other reality TV shows. So it's really fun.
Yeah, it's hilarious. My fiance and I listened to it together a lot. And
you came to she dragged you to one of our live shows?
Yeah. Well, I'd already listened. I knew what was going on, and it was it was hilarious. Do you guys don't often do live shows though, right? It's more of a special occasion thing.
We haven't in a while, but we're gearing up to do like more live shows. And that's another thing, is like, I love to take it back to the dead. Like, I would love nothing more than to have the time and the resources just to like go on the road for like a whole season. And that's like something that I would even love to do just myself, like as kind of a comedic performer who does this podcast that can do it live. Like, that's always a dream of mine, to like be on the road myself. So yeah, we're trying to get a like tour together and start doing more live shows because it's so fun.
So the Dead touring constantly, and that kind of like mythology of the road kind of like made you want to do the same?
It does, because you start to see, and what I love about the Dead is that like, yeah, they release like a handful of studio albums, but like they are workers. Like, they want to go out on the road, they want to perform, they love to do it. And like the people that go to the shows love that. And that really speaks to me, is like, I also love to perform, and is in a totally different medium, but they really showed me like the merit of touring and performing live and like connecting with your audience in that way.
So I was actually messaging with the previously mentioned contestant Joshua today, and he was telling me that Jerry had like debilitating stage fright, only did one solo performance for that reason. And I wouldn't have guessed that. And I wouldn't have guessed you having stage fright either, judging by how good you were live. But Jerry having stage fright kind of informs one that how well you perform has no relationship with your level of stage fright. So I guess my question is, do you have stage fright?
I think at first I did have a little bit, but then it becomes so like, the lead up, it becomes like more of like a formula of like, oh, this is what I need to feel like really prepared. And I think a lot of stage fright for me has come in the past has come from like not feeling prepared, or like I'll have dreams where I'm like supposed to go on stage and I like have no idea what I'm doing, or like don't know lines or what I'm talking about. But now, like working with my co-host Carrie on Sexy Unique podcast, it's like we know the drill so well, and we're like there to support each other and like play off of each other. So it just becomes really, really fun to do. There's like a little bit of nerves, but not like horrific stage fright. I think if I was really battling stage fright, I wouldn't take to the stage.
Awesome. You guys are hilarious together. Carrie's hilarious as well, and it's a great show. So
Thanks.
Okay, well, we're still trying to get down to 2 finalists here because these guys just keep tying. I love it. But Lara has another song for us. Let's hear it.
Look for a while at the china, get sunflower brown, walking jingle in the midnight sun. But don't bold a drip of silver, come on out like a crane, so we'll start down through a dream night wind. Colors on the vine, in river crying, yeah, lot of words from outer sea. Trombone, ring, silent bell, with a shower of pearls in the eagle, wing palace of the queen, shining.
All right, the guesses are in. It was China Cat at the Zoo Amphitheater on September 2nd, 1985. Nice choice, Lara. Is that the Zoo Amphitheater you referenced before?
Oh yeah, my old stomping grounds. And I just wish that I could have seen the Dead live, because that would have been major.
So why that China Cat?
I love China Cat. That's like probably my most like basic bitch Dead song. And it was like the one that I would always, when I kind of knew a very limited amount about them, but was like going to a show, always crossing my fingers that I hope I would hear. And it's just also the one that I have not gotten sick of over the years. Like I always love hearing it at a show. And I chose this one because it was at the OKC Zoo. And I thought, now I know so much about the 80s due to being on this show. And I'm like, wow, I really almost like it's T-ball for you guys, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, so the closest was Nick, who guessed 1982. Nick, what'd you hear there?
Wow, that amazes me. I thought I was going to be out.
Yeah, this one kind of tripped everyone up, actually.
I don't know, Laura, man. I was like, I don't know if you're getting into my head or I was trying to get into yours, but like, I was thinking Oklahoma City Zoo from 1982, because there's a China Cat for that too, but I don't know it as well.
I love playing the guest curator as she reveals more information about her life and her dead
Yeah,
reference.
yeah.
Well, thank God Lara sent me 10 songs, because Mateo and Jonathan were 4 years off equally. Jonathan guessed 81, Mateo guessed 89. Wow. Everyone's on to the next round again.
Wow.
Be the longest one.
I know, yeah. Mateo, why did you guess 89?
They just sounded really good, and I usually associate 89 with good. They sounded lucid, tight. And like I said earlier, the 80s are pretty weak for me. I thought I could tell the difference between early 80s and late half 80s, but I guess not always. That's it. They were lucid, they were tight, it sounded good, and I said 89.
I think that's a great guess, given how good that song sounded. And then Jonathan, 81, kind of the opposite of Mateo's, the spectrum of Brent. Why 81?
Like I said, the early 80s is like my Achilles heel. Everything before the coma and after the Godshaws left, it's kind of hazy, I just have a vague sense of it. Jerry, he's honestly, his voice didn't sound like 85. Like, he sounded like in pretty good shape for like an 85 show. So that kind of what made me go on the earlier half. But I remember when they were playing Wharf Rat earlier in the show, I think Brent was using the same organ tone. So that should have been a hint that I should have gone with like 83, 84 maybe. But yeah, man, we just keep getting lucky, me and Matt, man. I love it.
Yeah, well, let's hear the next song.
Please don't dominate the rap check. Got nothing new to say. If you please don't line up the check, this train has got to run today. Spend a little time on the mountain, spend a little time on the hill. Heard some say better run away, others say better stand still.
And another tie.
We're torturing Mateo.
That's more
here.
songs, Lara.
Yeah. New Speedway Boogie with a very late arriving Jerry at the Palace on June 8th, 1993. Yeah, Lara, why that New Speedway Boogie? Nice choice.
I love New Speedway Boogie. It's like my favorite song, I think, at the moment, because obviously like it changes and ebbs and flows, like whatever is the favorite one. But when I was trying to find a live version, I found out that like they played it for a while and then retired it for a really long time and then brought it back in, I want to say like 1990, but I didn't want to be so on the nose and I just wanted to get a little more obscure. So then I chose 1993. But I don't know if that was obscure enough for this crowd.
Yeah, so it was 93. Nick was closest in 1992, but Mateo and Jonathan both guessed 1991. Nick, but you were closest in 92.
Well, all right, Bruce wasn't there, and it was sort of like it's 92 or 93, and it didn't sound like like the rig change that I was mentioning before. That happened in like the middle of 93, so that's why I hedged on 92.
Got it.
Yeah.
Nice choice.
Thanks.
Mateo, 91. Yeah, anything you want to add there?
I don't know much to add. I don't know what to add there. I know Bruce wasn't there, but I just had found out that fact that Laura said about them retiring it, and I felt like they came back with it in 91, and I was like, oh, she's doing the return song, so 91.
Jonathan, also 91.
Yeah, I actually knew they brought back in 91 in protest of the commencement of the Gulf War. Actually, that's why they started playing it again. Yeah. Honestly, I thought I heard Bruce for a second. I heard the piano obviously, but for a second there's a little bit of synth in there towards the end. So it's like, it must be 91 then. I mean, they're both up there, but yeah, that's how I got 91. I thought they were both up there. I knew it started in 91, so yeah.
Okay, well, something's got to give eventually here between these contestants. And
Nice
or not,
one.
we'll see.
Nice.
Let's hear Lara's next pick.
Rat in a drain ditch, caught on a limb. You know better, but I know him. Like I told you, what I said. Steal your face right off your head. Now he's gone. Now he's gone. Lord, he's gone. He's gone.
What are we gonna do, Mike?
I don't know. This has never happened before, man. I don't know.
Mateo, what time do you got to go to work, man?
Mateo.
Hours? Just make a strong cup of coffee, and I'll be all right.
Yeah, what's your plan, Mateo? Are you gonna go back to bed or just power through?
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to bed. I don't have to get up until 9, and that's what 5.5 more hours.
I mean, as of
So
now, but
strong.
you
As
know.
of now.
Right,
As of
that's
now,
like
that's
as of
true.
now.
That's true.
You always get a power nap in during the siesta hour.
There you go.
Yeah,
That's
you're
very
in
true.
Spain.
Siesta is very normal, so it's all good.
He's gone at the Hollywood Palladium on September 9th, 1972. Lara, you're into these kind of Jerry ballads, it seems like.
Yeah, I really am. And like he's gone to add to my list. I like that this was early 70s. I like that it was at the Palladium because I just imagine that would be a really fun venue to see the Dead at back then in 1970s Los Angeles. Like you really can't go wrong. And then I like the flora and fauna of hearing kind of mistakes, hearing audience members shout kind of at the beginning and like a little bit of mistakes at the soundboard maybe. So that's why I went with this one.
Well, again, Nick got it, 72. Jonathan and Mateo were both 1 year off in 73. Nick, nice one. How'd you diagnose 72?
It sounded early. He's gone to me because it was like really up tempo, and no Donna.
Nice poll. Jonathan, why 73 for you?
Honestly, I had 72 typed in for 90% of that recording. I was like, okay, this is not Sunshine Daydream. I mean, the licks, everything was like almost identical to Sunshine Daydream. And like towards the end, like when they were harmonizing, like they sound like really tight. I don't know, this might be 73. And like I messed up with one of the 74 recordings, I think earlier. It says like, 73 smack dab between 72 and 74. So I just went with a safe bet and did 73.
And Mateo, who is up with us at now 4:40 a.m. or something. Yeah, right.
3:40,
What time is it?
3:40.
3:40. Okay. Yeah. Why 73?
I simply thought I heard the wall of sound mics. That's it.
Nice, Mateo. All right, everyone's on to the next round. Let's hear Lara's next pick.
Let my inspiration flow in token rhyme, suggesting rhythm that will not forsake till my tale is told and done. Fire lights aglow, strange shadows, the flames will grow till things we've never seen seem familiar. Shadows of a sailor forming brilliance bold, foul and fair all swarm. Down in Carlisle he loved a lady many years ago.
Okay, someone's eliminated.
Wow. Twist.
That
Got
does happen in
excited.
this game, you know? Yeah, so the beginning of a very promising sounding Terrapin station at the Forum on June 4th, 1977. Really interesting pick there, Lara. Why that one?
Terrapin Station might be my favorite Jerry ballad of all time. It's such a journey of a song. I also like Terrapin because if you ever go see Grateful Dead cover bands, like sometimes I'll go with people that don't know the Dead all that well, but they're like open to the experience. And I did this one time in Hawaii with a family friend where I was like, let's go see this cover band. And it was getting late into the night. I was like dancing, like enjoying the band. And then they started playing Terrapin. And my friend was like, we need to go soon. We need to go. And I was like, okay, yeah, we'll just go right after this song, knowing that it's like an 11 or 12-minute song. So it's the perfect song to when you just want to extend and you want to stay, but the person wants to go. You just say, yeah, we'll just right after Terrapin ends, we'll be out of here.
The full suite. Love it. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
So Mateo and Nick got it exactly 77. Jonathan, I'm sorry, you're 1 year off in 78.
Oh man.
Mateo, how'd you, your night continues. How did you guess 77? Your morning continues.
Wow. Well, obviously it was the audience recording, and so that didn't give me a lot of clues to play with. It just felt like the first Dead shows that I really loved when I started investigating by myself were 77 shows. I made like mixed CDs with just my favorite 77 songs, and it just had that feel. So I went with it.
Really nice pull. And you're on to the finals. Nick, you were also on the finals. Well deserved. I thought there was a chance one of these guys was going to swoop you and you're going to be 1 year off and they're going to get it or something after
I would have felt
like
bad.
every single fucking one of them.
I would have felt so bad.
No dice. You are on to the finals. How'd you figure that 77 out?
Well, I knew it had that 77 vibe to me, and I knew it wasn't 78, and I definitely knew it wasn't 79. And they had just played it for the first time in May of that year. So it seemed like a young, kind of, sort of crackling version of Terrapin.
Yeah, that's why I was surprised everyone was so on it, because that's the first year they played it. But nice figuring it out, crackling. I like that, Nick. Well, you're on to the finals. And Jonathan, I'm sorry, you got, once again, you got 9 songs in and didn't even make it to the finals, which is
Wild.
unprecedented.
I'm honored.
Amazing run. Yeah, you're going out in the books. But what why 78?
Because Mickey had his car crash in 77 and they cut the summer tour short. That's basically where my thinking went. It sounded like a 77 show. It was an audience recording, so it wasn't really that crisp, I was really listening for Keith because, Keith, he really falls off in 78. It seems like is he like nodding off at the piano? Like, I don't know. He's just like playing like chord tones. Like he wasn't really mixing it up that much. So I was thinking like, maybe it's 78, like 77 was cut short. So just might be 78. So yeah, I went with that.
Both very good rationales. So Jonathan, you're the kind of wonderkin here. You're 24. How did you get into the Dead, and how did you get so great at picking Dead songs?
Well, I wasn't always into the Dead. I feel like it's almost inevitable. I was telling people this on tour when I saw Bobby this past winter tour. My first show, it wasn't the Dead, it was the Allman Brothers, but I attended it in utero. I was in Dancing Bear onesies. My parents loved it. For my first like 12, 13 years, I thought the music was kind of boring. The songs were really long. I like folk music. I like the Beatles. I loved grunge. And as I was getting in like 8th grade, I really loved hard rock grunge, even like some gypsy punk, weird enough. Shout out to Gogo Bordello. They're still going strong. But then Dick's Picks 25 found its way onto my iPod, which is May 10th and 11th, 78. And 11th is the infamous Mescaline show. You have like roaring beats. Roaring guitar solos, so much energy. And like, that's just kind of my gateway into them. They kind of had the energy that I liked with the hard rock. And I just kind of went the rabbit hole from there, man. I swear, if I did this show when I was like straight out of high school, I would have like won it 10 out of 10. Like it was all I listened to. Like my coworkers hated me because it's like, are you seriously listening to Dead again? It's like, this is the same song? Like they're singing Dancing in the Streets again? Like what? It's like 15 minutes ago, man. But no, I love the Dead. I got Robert Hunter on my shirt. I bought it in the lot in Nashville a few weeks ago. Bobby is a wonderland. I love seeing the Wolf Pack. Bobby, he is such an intelligent musician. He's like no other. He is like no other. I was so blessed to have such intimate venues to share with Bobby and all these other Deadheads, young and old. The music is going well beyond Bobby. And since we're ending on Terrapin, like I say, I saw Bobby play it twice. He did the full suite. Once was with the Wolfpack, and once was with the Atlanta Symphony. Guys, he's going to publish that with the Atlanta Symphony. It was phenomenal. It was like 23, 25 minutes, and it just blew me away. So, Bobby, love what you're doing. Keep doing Pilates or whatever the hell you're doing, man. Stay healthy and stay strong, man. Thank you, guys. I'm so glad I got to be a part of this, man. This is so much fun.
You were great, Jonathan. These guys were lucky to catch you on your Dead downswing, or else God knows, because you're a wealth of knowledge, man. It's great to hear your points tonight. Really appreciate you doing the show.
Thanks. Hey, hope you have me back, man. Thank you so much.
Will do. Yeah, of course. Okay, there are 2 finalists now, Mateo and Nick. Let's play the first song.
Maybe the sun is shining. surprised when you find
All right, so we're going to do the finals a little differently moving forward. Contestants are going to reveal their guesses before I reveal the correct year. This is something that my friend Jack suggested a long time ago, and Josh from Reddit also suggested this. Pretty much all the positive developments from this show, from its inception to now, have been someone else's idea. So thank you to everyone who takes the time to write in, to suggest stuff, and make the game better. So yeah, let's try this new format. Mateo, it was Box of Rain, of course, but what year do you think it was?
I guess 1993, because I know that Phil didn't sing for quite a long period of time. They brought back Box of Rain later on in their run as a band. You know, and it's getting late over here, right? Early. And I put in 93 really quick, and I pressed enter, and then I said, oh man, I should probably listen to see if Bruce is in there too. And then I started to listen, and I didn't hear him. So maybe it's good.
Thank you, Mateo. And Nick, your guess was definitely different than Mateo's. What did you guess and why?
Well, to me, it sounded like a late 80s version of Box of Rain. I was kind of going back and forth between 86 and 87. I ultimately chose 87, but 86, I mean, but I could have gone 87 because it was like around this time in 86 where they busted it out after a zillion years at Hampton. And it didn't sound like the crowd was going that berserk, because everybody always got excited for Box of Rain. But if you ever listen to that version, like it's almost as if the Coliseum, sort of the fans, the heads outcompete the band for a little bit. But anyway, I ended up on 86, thinking 86, 87, maybe 88.
All right, well, it was Box of Rain at the Centrum in Worcester, Massachusetts on April 4th, 1987. Nick gets the point. Nice choice, Lara. Why that Box of Rain?
I love Box of Rain. And then I remembered from earlier in the show that late 80s trip people up. So I was like, let's go late 80s. Let's end this. Give them some 80s. And then I was like, shout out to David. It was David, right? The first elimination.
Yeah.
He was from a mass hole, if I remember. So I thought, hey, Worcester, Massachusetts, little nod to David, and a late 80s to really throw down the gauntlet.
There it is. Nice choice. Yeah, so Nick goes up 1-0 in the series. And Nick, how'd you get into the Dead?
I grew up in northern New Jersey, and there's like a lot of Deadheads around there. And when I was maybe like 9 or 10, my cousin was staying with us, my older cousin, and we were watching Saturday Night Live, and it was all about watching the Dead on Saturday Night Live that night. And so I stayed up with her, and we watched that. And then for my 10th birthday, I got an 8-track player, like boombox, and Skeletons in the Closet. And there's that, that other record, Long Strange Trip. It was like a 2-record compilation set. I got those for my birthday. And then, just kind of exposed to the music. And then when I was in high school, it's always like, friends, older siblings. And then, through that, we started to go to shows at the Meadowlands and the Garden, and living around New York. You're always in proximity to a fall, summer, and spring tour. And it's easy to see a lot of shows.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. And before we keep going, let's hear Mateo's origin story. Mateo, how did you get into the Dead?
Well, when I was maybe 15 or 16, I had a good buddy, Andy Shaw, that was the only one of us that had a car. And he would drive around, and he'd play usually Junta by Fish.
Oh.
Yeah, Junta, I would say, is Spanish. Junta.
Yeah.
But yeah, he would usually play that. And then one day he put on American Beauty. And I said, what is this? Turn this off, man. Let's change it back to something else. And he kind of looked at me in the rearview mirror. I was sitting in the back seat, and he's like, his jaw dropped, like, how could you say this blasphemy against? And now, looking back on myself in the rearview mirror, I do the same thing. How could I have said such a thing? But I didn't like it at first. And then later on, I had another buddy named Corey Anderson who forced me. I don't want to say forced me. He put on Live Dead. Yeah, the album Live Dead.
Of course.
And song 1, Dark Star, comes in, and I'm just talking. And he's like, no, dude. And he starts it over. And he's like, shh, listen. And so he presses play, and something happened in that moment, like the universe, along with Corey Anderson, was saying, no, listen. And so I listened, and they started telling their story with their instruments, and I got sucked into it. And that fill bass is really heavy at the beginning of that album, and then Jerry comes in with his da 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 da, and I got just sucked right into it, man. And I really couldn't stop after that. And Andy's older brother, like Nick was saying, older siblings usually have a pretty big impact. Andy's older brother, Tim, was a deadhead. He had gone to shows. He's probably who got Andy into it. We would go over to his house, smoke some weed. He would light a Nog Champa, turn the lights down real low. He had these awesome speakers and just blast shows for us. And his favorite thing to do was have us guess the song. Yeah, he's like, guess the song. And so he'd want us to guess the song real quick. But the funny thing is he would never tell us. Like, we'd guess, and he wouldn't say if we were right or wrong. He'd just like start dancing, and we'd have to figure it out. We'd have to figure it out for ourselves. But I remember those times fondly, and yeah, they've been a big part of my life since.
Thanks, Mateo. You need this one to stay alive for the painting provided by Jon Griffin Art. Nick, you need this one to win the painting of Jerry. Let's hear Lara's next pick.
Let us put men and women together, see which one is smarter. Some say men, but I say no. The women got the men like a puppet show. It ain't me, it's the people that say men are leading the women instead. But I say it's the women today, smarter than the men in every way. That's right, the women are smarter. That's right, the women are smarter. That's right, the women are smarter. The women are smarter. That's right, that's right.
So Mateo, what do you think?
I thought 88.
Fair,
I thought 88.
Fair enough.
Nick laughs.
Nick,
I feel like Nick thought 88 as well.
I did. Yeah. Well, I do. Yes. And I didn't go 89 because in 89 there's a good chance of some MIDI in there.
Succinct. Great poll. Yeah, it was Man Smart, Woman Smarter at Reunion Arena in Dallas, Texas on October 21st, 1988. That's a nice one, Lara. Why that?
Okay, here's my truth. I've never liked Aiko Aiko. Like it makes me cringe. I don't like it. So then when I learned about this song, it was the kind of thing where at first I would think it was Aiko Aiko, and then I'd be like, oh my God, no, it's man smart, women smarter. So I'm in. So I tried to also do late 80s in the attempt to confuse and end things, but that didn't work. So here we still are, but I'm glad to be here.
Well, I think your next pick, Lara, is going to get the job done in terms of confusing people.
Has anyone chosen these specifically?
No.
Okay. This I will literally be shocked if people. But now I'm learning never underestimate Nick or Mateo.
You guys are, yeah. Well, let's see if this one does it. All right, let's play this one.
That's it?
Oh boy.
The gloves are off.
Boy.
Not giving you guys a whole
Could be
drums
They
here.
really are.
Okay. Mateo, you guessed 1969.
I guessed 1969, and I know it probably wasn't. But I know it probably wasn't, but I thought it sounded pretty primal. It didn't have that that 80s sound that the drums seem to have. I don't know how you would describe that thicker sound. I just went 69 to kind of put it around that earlier time.
All right. Nick, what'd you guess and why?
I guessed 85. I almost went 78, but then I was like, this is, to me, it was just like all Billy. I was waiting to hear what Mickey was going to do. Because when Mickey came, when he would come in, kind of tells you what's going on. Like he's playing the beam, if he's going to play a talking drum, and so I did think it sounded in the 80s because to me it had like that big stadium sound. But I don't know. Who knows?
Well, it was the Auditorium Theater in Chicago on June 28th, 1976. Mateo was closer in his 69 guess. So we're going on to the decisive tie-breaking round. Lara, inspired pick, the first drums in the history of Guess the Year, the podcast, despite it being the most common song the Grateful Dead ever played. Besides choosing a tough one to help Mateo go to sleep sometime this morning, why did you choose drums, and why did you choose that drums in particular?
I think trotting out a little drum space when the stakes are so high is a way to separate the men from the boys in a way. And so
I think she's previewing what may come next, but there's only one way to find out. It's tied 1-1, and Jon Griffin's Jerry painting is on the line for whoever gets this next song, whatever it may be. Let's hear it. with like great like lethargy comes great innovation, because this is a great way to end tiebreakers, and I'm just gonna do this every time now. Okay, Nick.
I heard a lot of electronics coming out of Bob, and so it put me into the mid 80s, because that's when he left his kind of cowboy Ibanez behind and embraced like, the modulus guitars and the Casio guitars. And, there was a lot of playing around with delays there, I think, and this layering effect. And so, I don't know. I mean, I put 84.
Lovely choice. Mateo, what did you choose?
What did I choose? I chose 89. 89.
Right on.
I also heard electronics. I heard a groove. It was groovy. I liked it.
Yeah.
So it was July 2nd, 1995.
Oh,
Mateo is new champ of Guest of the Year. Congratulations, Mateo.
oh, Mateo.
Thank
Yes.
you. Oh my goodness. I feel like I don't deserve it with you, Nick.
Hey, you
Oh,
hung in
come
there,
on,
Mateo.
man.
You've been killing
Dude,
it.
if anybody deserves it, it's you. It's like 3 a.m.
Yeah.
Killing it.
4:30.
You're killing it.
4:30, Nick.
4:30.
4:30.
Wow.
I stand corrected.
Lara, you completed Drum Space. Bravo. Why'd you choose that one?
I guess I can't remember now. It's been so long since we've been on this podcast. If I had chosen anything from 95, but I don't think I did. But I wanted to choose like a space from a really random city, and what is more random than Indiana? So I figured, how will they get this? And I just threw it into the mix.
Cool.
Was that like Deer Creek? Is that from Deer Creek? Is that what you said?
Yeah, it was Deer Creek. Congratulations, Mateo. Congratulations, Nick. Lara, thank you so much for all of your picks. It's been a pleasure.
It's been great,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you
Lots
so
of
much.
fun.
It's all mine. Yeah.
All right, subscribe to Guest of the Year on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. For all the show links, go to guestoftheyear.net. And if you want to be a contestant on this show, sponsor the show, or make comments and ask questions, email us at info@guestoftheyear.net. Thank you again to Lara Marie Schoenhals. Her podcast, once again, are Sup, Sexy Unique Podcast, and Too Niche. She is on Instagram at Lars Marie, LARZMARIE. Thank you so much to Jon Griffin Art for the awesome prize pack, to Mason for doing our curating, and to Dylan for drawing the posters. Thank you so much for listening to the longest Guest of the Year episode ever. Thanks to the amazing tapers whose recordings made this show possible. Congratulations to our new champ, Mateo. And to our other contestants, thanks for playing. Remember, it's all one song anyway.
And I bid you good night, good night, good night. And I bid you good night, good night, good